Yeah, hi there, this is tuxocher.com again. Welcome on my video channel. Today I would like to give you an overview of the most often used apps I use in my daily work. These apps are in a sense of tools that make work or some tasks a little bit easier, but on the other hand, there are some apps to overcome the difference between the different operating system to a certain degree. Okay, let's get into it. First of all is the Dente app for the rechargeable battery, which I used also on the MacBook Air and of course now on the MacBook Pro. It is used to limit the maximum charge of the battery to a certain degree, even though the laptop is connected to the power supply. This should help to extend the battery life to a certain degree because the battery is not charged all the time to 100%. I've set it to the 80% default value, and this means the charge level remains on the 80% despite the power plug being connected. In addition, the Pro version, which you have to license, can be also to be set to so-called sailing mode. This means if the power limit of the battery is a little bit lower than, let's say, the 80% you set to it as a default value, let's say minus 5%, that will cause the battery not to charge up a little difference from 2 or 3%. It just will keep that unloaded until a certain decrease of battery chargement is reached, and then it will start to load up to the normal level you set, and that is in my case 80%. All in all, a very useful application. The next one is also for Mac OS, and that is Hidden Bar. Most of the application plays somewhat of information into the status bar, which then could get pretty crowded, so you don't see the most valuable information you need. That is where Hidden Bar comes into the scene. It just divides the status bar into two parts. One you can see all the time, and the other part is hidden. You have to click on the little arrow so you can see the other icons in the status bar. Before that, I tried Icy, but there was a problem with the display, so I ditched that and got myself to the hidden menu application. I think the most prominent is in this case is Bartender, which is a paid program. It's a little bit more comprehensive than Hidden Bar. For example, you can set some of the information from program so that they are visible if they are active. Let's say, for example, a time machine backup. You can set this so it will be placed on the part of the status bar you can see, but it's with 30 euros, it's pretty expensive, so I rather stick with Hidden Bar so far. The next one is Local Send, on which I did an article on already. If you're in the world of Apple devices, like for iPad, iPhone, Mac OS in general, and so on, sending files between the different devices can be done with AirDrop, which is very usable and is very useful. But if you use Windows and Linux system at the same time, you sometimes would look for a feature like that, and that is, of course, Local Send. Local Send is able to send files, images, video clips, and so on, text devices, between the different devices via Wi-Fi. And the only requirement you have that all the devices where you want to send or receive data from are in the same Wi-Fi, which is, I guess, normally. The speed of Local Send is pretty much the same as with AirDrop, and the only thing you have to require is that the client and sender are on the same Wi-Fi as I mentioned, and they are differentiated or accessed via certain names which are processed by the app. The next app I use very often is Veracrypt. Sometimes there are files, or rather the content of the files, that you want to keep in a safe place. This is especially true if you also store those files into a cloud system and you want, even when someone breaks into the cloud system, that the contents of those files will be safe in a sense that nobody can read it or look at pictures or so on and so forth. The Veracrypt tool has been helping for years, allowing you to create an encrypted container that can be opened and decrypted with this tool. That is very handy. However, as soon as the container is closed, the files it contains are encrypted and thus safe from unauthorized access. This tool is available also for Windows and Linux and of course Mac OS, so you can use it across operating system as you like. Only with Mac OS the installation was not that easy, or a little bit more complicated I would say, because you have to install a kernel module that can handle the virtual devices needed for Veracrypt for the encrypted containers. However, this installation process is described for the different macOS system on the Veracrypt website, so it shouldn't be a problem at all. However, if you need a tool that can also open such containers and encrypted files on mobile devices like a smartphone or a tablet, you might be better off with the Cryptomator app, which also can open such containers just like Veracrypt, and in the paid version it can also generate such containers on mobile devices. Let's come to the next one, that is security in terms of passwords. I've been actually using a password safe for a long time. It used to be KeepassXC, and then later on I turned to KeepassXC because it's just impossible to remember a certain number of accounts. You no longer actually remember all those passwords, especially true if you have different passwords for all of the different accounts. KeepassXC is also available for Linux, Mac OS, and Windows system, so you can save your passwords across the different operating systems. KeepassXC also contains several browser plugins, so you can also use this app to fill in passwords if you hit with the browser an internet account where you have to insert your credential on the website. That is pretty convenient. For almost 2 years now, however, I have switched to Vaultwarden, a self-hosted derivative of Bitwarden password container, which I also host myself on the Proxmox host. There are also various browser plugins for this app, so using it on a Chrome-based or on Firefox browsers is no problem at all. You can even use the corresponding app on an iOS system with Safari. The only difference is that it is not a plug-in to the Safari browser, it's a standalone app on the iOS system, but it works pretty good. The next one is Yubikey Authenticator, and I use that particularly for critical access such as PayPal or my bank account or my domains. So this is a hardware key that, together with the corresponding app, enables a two-factor authentication. This makes it particularly secure because a potential attack would also have to have the second key, either the Yubikey or, if you use the other authenticator app, your cell phone. Because Yubikeys only have a limited space for those options, I now use two FAS app for other critical accounts, for example on my Proxmox server, an open source app that is also available for all the operating system used, but also for iOS and Android system, among others. I think that both methods are equivalent, so You don't necessarily need a hardware key, but you should use at least the two-factor authentication for your accounts in order to have a second authentication method for your accounts and being safe, so a possible attacker would have to have your cell phone or any other device which you stored the app to. 2FAS also has the advantage that the tokens, the access codes, can be exported or imported, so backing up is no problem, and transferring them to another device is very, very easy. The next one is Joplin. That is my favorite, or let's say my only note-taking app for the last couple of years. I already made a video about the Joplin server, which I actually found pretty good, but of course the fact that it doesn't offer user management, and so the accounts can't be separated. The Joplin app itself doesn't have user management at all, but in connection with the cloud system where you can store your nodes, in my case that is Nextcloud, the nodes from the different user are separated from each other in the different Nextcloud accounts. The app supports MD format, of course, a normal text format, and code snippets like for CMD or Bash scripts or so on, for example, of program files. And of course, links can be inserted, which you have to remember, among other things, so that the app is my really day companion. You also don't need any functional imitation with the implementation of the desktop variants and the implementation of the Android and iOS system. So it's really convenient and the operation is really almost the same on every operating system. The next one is Floccus. That's an app to store and manage your bookmarks across different browsers and of course different operating system. Floccus actually uses some plugins for Chrome-based browsers and of course for Firefox. And the actual bookmarks are saved again via the integration in a Nextcloud app so that they are separated between the different user accounts. There's a standalone app for iOS that can basically do the same thing, but the point is that extensions are not provided for the Safari browser, which is too bad, but you can use it on an iPad OS or iOS iPhone, which works out almost the same as the plugins for the different browsers for the desktop systems. While the app is free and open source, the app for iOS costs a little bit of money. That's €1.99, which I think is only the cost the developer has to take care of because of the App Store, and that is a very small fee for using this app on iOS. The ninth one is screenshots, and here I actually use 3 different apps on the 3 different operating systems. And that is because I haven't found a program which is equally implemented on Linux, Mac OS, or Windows. So I use Screenshot on Windows. On Linux, it's Flamesharp, and on Mac OS is the Shutter app. This works well so far because I have set up at least the same keyboard shortcut, so I don't have to remember different shortcuts on every operating system. The only inconvenience I have is that with Shutter I can't really choose if the screenshots are saved into PNG files or in JPEG files, but I think that's okay so far, and I would come around this fact. Okay, the last but not least is of course for my screencasts, where I tell you about different programs or different features of programs. I use Open Broadcast System, OBS. I mainly use it for Windows and Mac OS, even though it's available, of course, also on Linux. The program can display different video sources together and can create screen recordings, for example, up to 4K and 60 frames per second. The program is of course available for all desktop systems, including Linux, but I mostly use it for Windows or Mac OS because my Elgato Stream Deck is connected here to the system too, which is pretty convenient. The Iriun app, I think is, I hope I pronounce it right, is very useful on Windows system because it allows to use the iPhone as a webcam. And not only as a webcam, you can use it on full resolution, which means you can connect it to OBS with 4K. That's pretty convenient, so sometimes I just didn't use a system camera, I just used the iPhone. Using the iPhone as a webcam can also be done on MacBook Pro, even though without any additional driver or so on. But it's limited to 1080p, which is, yeah, too bad, I think. Maybe there will be an update with the next macOS version. I hope so, but so far I can live with that limitation. This combination has also proven to be very useful for creating video recordings. And since DaVinci Resolve also can handle the MKV video format, there's absolutely no problem in adding those files. I tried out the MOV files, but sometimes I had trouble, especially when OBS crashed, so I will stick to the MKV files for this task. Okay, that was an overview of the most useful apps, in my opinion, which I use on a daily basis, either to overcome some differences on the operating system or make some tasks even more convenient and easier. If you have any questions to this, you might as well place them in the comments to this video or in the comments section of the corresponding blog post. And if this video was a little bit helpful to you, you might think about placing a like on the video. And surely I would appreciate if you subscribe my channel, but then don't forget to hit the bell so you get a notification every time I upload a new video. Okay, that was my little video on most useful app, and all I have to say is till the next time, ciao, Tux Oche.